So I'm here with Eric Malone, the winner and champion of Chicago Regional, with one of the greatest decks in the format. Just, no one can deny you've won two major tournaments with this deck, right, Eric?
Yep, ARG States, New Jersey, 39 people. And in Chicago yesterday with 208.
Tons and tons of players there came out to win, and you just took it all with this excellent deck. So everyone knows about Scott Dashy's spicy meatball build. So the first thing I gotta ask you, let me just scan over this list. First thing I gotta ask you is, have you seen Scott's list? How does it compare to this one?
Yeah, I've known Scott for a long time. We talk a lot about this list, about specific options in it. So I've been talking to him and Fahad probably the most about this list and the specifics of it. But yeah, the base is Scott's for sure.
Yeah. So how is this deck different than Scott's? Like, what are the major differences?
I think probably one of the bigger differences is lookout drill.
Okay.
And this was really a meta call for black.
Okay.
Black capture is something I was always afraid of just from my testing with Kelly Dennis, and then obviously watching Sundeep last week put it on made me confirm that it was a good call to keep in the deck. I lost tactical drill or a second forward stance, whatever you chose there, but I feel like lookout gave more value, and even against 20, which I didn't play at all yesterday. It gives me some value.
Okay.
Other major differences probably would be the back strikes and the chokes, and the antidote.
Okay.
Backstrike, I know Scott doesn't like, but it gives me a chance to actually act. I treat it as extra crit. It gives me a chance to actively search out my crits. 50% of the time, I grab a ball. End of combat, I'll backstrike for a ball, put a ball in my hand, and that just accelerates my win condition, which is mainly DBV, except against the mech game where I actively go for MPPV.
Okay.
Choke is another call for black, really. It gets rid of wall breaker, it gets rid of capture. It's an extra crit. I only play it if I have to because I know the chances of me beating down with this deck, it really only happens against the mirror. It has happened before against the mirror. You could grind out games, but in most cases, this is just an extra crit. And yeah. I was either this or like Red Emergency, which seemed very average. This at least gives me the option to get rid of wall breaker or capture rather than just a crit.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see Choke in this list mainly because of Black Reflection. Like, I love that card. It's in most of my black lists. So, and I know Choke is pretty much the worst thing that Red Roshi has to deal with. It's pretty much always unstoppable.
Yeah, Reflection I feel like is being phased out of the meta. I haven't seen a 20 deck run it. I'm not saying the 20 can't run it, but I haven't seen a 20 deck run it. It's mainly just Krillin, which is down to Joey Walter and a few other people playing it. So I don't have to worry about Reflection too much, and I have the 3 spheres, and I actively try and keep a sphere in my hand against most control decks, so like or Reflection Krillin deck. If it's an Angry Krillin, obviously I'll try and keep a sphere anyway. But yeah, I think Choke won me a lot of games yesterday. I don't regret running it. Even Red Antidote won me a couple games.
Really?
Top 16. It got rid of a capture and it got rid of a wall breaker.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
And 2 anger. That's what's great about it.
Yeah, you get the anger afterwards, which is really helpful. As a one-off tech, and because I have backstrikes, I could actively tutor out the antidote, which is what I did.
Yeah, and I know that one thing that Kelly always talked about was, he was able to easily scout and black searching technique all of your wall breaker answers, and I really do feel like Choke adds to that because they're not going to really be expecting it. Just that extra card in your deck that can get off wall breaker.
Right,
in
now
the
I
black
have
matchup.
the 2 mule kicks, the 2 chokes, and the antidote. Yeah, I get rid of all of them to keep wall breaker on me.
Excellent. So did you say that you won every game by MPPV or?
No, 2 MPPV games, the rest were DBV. The only game I actively go for most powerful personality is Namekian Piccolo because I don't run optics. I know I cannot win by Dragon Ball against unless they make huge mistakes or I just draw all 7 balls. I'm never going to ball out against that deck. And I accept that from the beginning, and I actively race MPV, and it worked out twice. I played 2 Namekian Piccolos. It's a tough game, but you could definitely win it out by anger.
I do like that a lot because I likewise in my Roshi build had dropped optics after a few rounds of playtesting with it because you're just simply not going to hit optic. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
At least not going to hit it in the situation that you need to, where you have 5 or 6 balls on the field and they have the single last ball that you need.
Exactly. Yeah. The optic was nice for the endurance, and that's pretty much it. They're always going to block it, and it's banished after use, so I can't recycle it. And I never saw it as a great card. I know why he wanted to run it. But I don't think he was sold on it either from the start.
Yeah.
Scott, that is.
So how many times did you banish Kami for the win? Let me just ask you that.
Probably only 2 or 3 times. With Slumber, I would always put like a tug on top, or I would go for it with Backstrike, which is what I did in my top 16 match.
Yeah, I saw that. That was really nice.
But yeah, there's a lot of searchers in this deck. I consider Kami 2 Backstrikes and a Radar searcher, which is why I always say I don't consider Garlic a DBB deck, even though I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with that. This is a DBB deck. This deck actively searches out balls in a way that Garlic cannot.
Yeah, it's true. Well, excellent deck list, man. You did really well yesterday. Is there any challenges that you faced or any changes that you'd make to this deck?
I don't think I'd make any changes right now, mainly because Vengeance is coming. But
right.
The toughest matchup for me is always going to be a Red Garlic, which I didn't run into. That's pretty much an auto loss. I'm never going to give up a game, but it's really tough to play around Red Garlic's level 3. And Namekian Pickle. Those are the 2 matchups I was afraid of the most until I saw Phil's Saiyan Cell deck, and I didn't want to play that either because he ran a Dragon Ball build, which he posted, so I'm sure.
And Demolishing Beam, right?
And Demolishing Beam, yeah. And he ran Optic Blast too.
That's
Optic
nice.
Blast in a Saiyan Cell deck, so it was a very interesting build. I did not want to play it. It was geared to beat me.
Right.
So,
I do like hear how you play both Sphere and Confrontation. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I like 2 of Confrontation. It helps me secure win conditions. Like if I slumber for a ball, I want to keep that ball in my hand, so like that Confrontation could take an attack out to let me take a ball.
Right. All right, man. Well, very, very good deck list, and good job yesterday taking the whole thing.
Thank you.
I'm sure everyone is going to be, looking at this list and like, oh, Red Roshi, that's a pretty good idea. All right, man. Thanks again.
No problem.